Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 1, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Sri Shukdev Goswami said, O King, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer's seeing his own body working. Purport. Maharaj Parikshit's question is as to how a living being began his material life, although he is apart from the material body and mind, is perfectly answered. The spirit soul is distinct from the material conception of his life, but he is absorbed in such a material conception because of his being influenced by the external energy of the Lord, called Atma Maya. This has already been explained in the first canto in connection with Vyasadev's realization of the Supreme Lord and his external energy. The external energy is controlled by the Lord, and the living entities are controlled by the external energy, by the will of the Lord. Therefore, although the living entity is purely conscious in his pure state, he is subordinate to the will of the Lord in being influenced by the external energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad-gita also, the same thing is confirmed. The Lord is present within the heart of every living entity, and all the living entities' consciousness and forgetfulness are influenced by the Lord. Now, the next question automatically made will be why the Lord influences the living entity to such consciousness and forgetfulness. The answer is that the Lord clearly wishes that every living entity be in his pure consciousness as a part and parcel of the Lord, and thus be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become as independent as the Lord is. All the non-devotee living entities are desirous of becoming equally as powerful as the Lord, although they are not fit to become so. The living entities are illusioned by the will of the Lord because they wanted to become like him. Like a person who thinks of becoming a king without possessing the necessary qualification, when the living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he is put in a condition of dreaming that he is a king. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord. And the consequent will of the Lord is that the living entity forget his factual life and thus dream of the land of utopia, where he may become one like the Lord. The child cries to have the moon from the mother, and the mother gives the child a mirror to satisfy the crying and disturbing child with the reflection of the moon. Similarly, the crying child of the Lord is given over to the reflection, the material world, to lord it over as a karmi, and to give this up in frustration to become one with the Lord. Both these stages are dreaming illusions only. There is no necessity of tracing out the history of when the living entity desired this. But the fact is that as soon as he desired it, he was put under the control of Atma Maya by the direction of the Lord. Therefore the living entity in his material condition is dreaming falsely that this is mine and this is I. The dream is that the conditioned soul thinks of his material body as I, or falsely thinks that he is the Lord, and that everything in connection with this material body is mine. Thus only in dream does the misconception of I and mine persist, life after life. This continues life after life as long as the living entity is not purely conscious of his identity as the subordinate part and parcel of the Lord. In his pure consciousness, however, there is no such misconceived dream, and in that pure conscious state the living entity does not forget that he is never the Lord, but that he is eternally the servitor of the Lord in transcendental love. This statement by Sri Shukdev Goswami is in reply to a query by Sri Parikshit Maharaj. The question is, how did the jiva begin his material life? It's a very common question, because if we understand, as Shastra says, asango hi ayam purusha, that the jiva has no intrinsic relationship with matter, then what are we doing in this world of matter? The jiva is by nature satchit ananda, is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. So how are we in this situation, in this material world of asat, achit, nirananda, where everything in this material world, everything is temporary, it's the world of ignorance, and it's the world of suffering. Srila Prabhupada elaborated on this topic when lecturing on this very verse. And the answer to the question, how did we get into this material life, is that we didn't. Swapna drashturivanjasa. We are like a person seeing a dream. This whole material existence is like a dream. That means that, what is a dream? A dream is something that's not real, right? So the whole material world is unreal. Is that correct? Well, it seems real. If, for instance, someone says nothing in this world is real, and we just like to test how much they really believe in that philosophy by hitting them on the head with a hammer very hard, he would certainly feel real pain, and quite likely some real blood would come out of his head, and he'd have to go to a real hospital, and I might end up going to a real jail. So how can we say this world is not real? Well, it's real, but in the same way that a dream is real. Dream is also real. There is a phenomenon called a dream. There's a class of events called dreams. If there's absolutely no existence of dreams, then we couldn't even talk of them. The dream takes place, and in the dream we might dream that I'm being eaten by a tiger, and we experience it as real. We wake up screaming, "Ah, tiger!" Then we wake up and see, oh, it's only a dream. It's not real. But the experience was real. So, in the same way, in this material world, we experience various sensations, and they're real in that sense. But they're unreal in as much as they're not our actual existence. And it's temporary. This material existence may go on for a very, very long time, but it's not our real existence. Our real existence is in the spiritual world with Krishna. Sometimes in a dream it may seem to go on and on and on, but then we wake up and we understand. In the dream it seemed like a very long time, but then when we wake up we realize, well, it was just a dream. I was just asleep for a short time. Now I'm awake. Now back to my real life. But it's not our real life. We suffer nightmares and daymares. Can you say that also? Duswapna and dujagara. And I don't know. You say duswapna. How do you say it?
I said that's daydream.
Yeah. Huh? Ratri swapna. Dream. Nightmare? Nightmare, you say duswapna.
Yeah.
So, we wake up, we think that was a terrible nightmare, but then we have to get on with a terrible existence in the daytime, in which we daydream also. Man gets up in the morning, goes to work in the factory, and he thinks, he's dreaming as he's going in the train to work, daydreaming, I'd like to be the proprietor of the factory. While lecturing on this verse, Srila Prabhupada gave another analogy of the moon being covered by a cloud. Actually, the moon is not covered, but from our perspective it is covered. And that's only for a short time, the clouds will cover it. Even from our perspective. And when the clouds move, if the clouds are moving quickly, it seems that the moon is moving, but it's not. Similar example, if you're sitting in a train and the train is stopped at the station, there's another train next to you which is also stopped, and the other train starts to move, sometimes you think that this train that you're sitting in is moving, but it's not. So this is illusion. This illusion is not that nothing exists, but our perception of it is inaccurate. Srila Prabhupada explained, both here in his purport and in the lecture he gave, that it's because we want to be the controller. Ishvaro aham bhogi. We have this desire to imitate Krishna. Therefore Krishna gives us the opportunity to do so. Because we desire to think of ourselves as a controller separate from Krishna. So Krishna gives us that opportunity, and we think like that. We forget that we are part and parcel of Krishna. The Srila Prabhupada gave the example of someone who is playing the role of a king in a drama. If you play a role in a drama, the director will tell you it's basic part of acting, that you have to forget who you are and you have to become the role in the drama. As long as you're playing that part, you just forget who you really are and you become the king or whatever. So if you're playing the role of a king or a queen in a drama and you say, "Off with his head," and you have to really feel the role of the queen who says that. If you think that, well, actually I'm just an actor and I'm just doing this, then you can't, the real feeling won't come through. So in the same way we adopt the consciousness. I am American. I am Indian. Atasmriti jnanam apohanam cha. From Krishna comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So why do we think I am American or I am Indian? Because we want to take that role for the sake of imitating Krishna and forgetting him. And so Krishna reinforces that consciousness. If we think, actually I'm a pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, then we'll think, well, what am I doing thinking I'm American? And it's nonsense. It is nonsense, but we want to think that it's sense. So how did we come to this material existence? We didn't. It's just like being in a dream. A dream is unreal, but it's real also. It means it has limited reality, but you can't say it's totally false. Now this might seem to be some kind of clever way of explaining something in which we hold two positions at once, but how can you have two positions at once? Clever. Chala. But this is not some philosophical word juggling. But the analogy is clear. A dream is real in one sense and unreal in another. It seems very real to us. So that's why Lord Chaitanya comes and says, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping soul. Because if we think, I am an Indian, I am American, I am a king, all these things, it cannot be real because we are part and parcel of Krishna. It cannot have an actual relationship with this external energy. But it seems like that, it very strongly seems like that. So this verse and Srila Prabhupada's explanation of it are often cited in one of those controversies which goes on in Vaishnava society and probably will for as long as there's Vaishnava society in this world. Of course there won't always be Vaishnava society. There may be a few Vaishnavas here and there, but there will be a time in Kali Yuga when people have children just to eat them. So now there is Vaishnava society in the world, and there are various philosophical and other controversies. Because for us, within this dream, it's very difficult to ascertain what is reality. It's like we're drugged and we're drunk and we're trying to recover. Or we're dreaming and we're just waking up. We've probably had that experience. We're dreaming and then we wake up. And just when we wake up, we're not sure if the dream is real or not. We're still half dreaming. Another example is that of Well, an example is of amnesia. Then someone who's suffering from amnesia, they can be revived to their so-called original consciousness if they're put in contact with things they're very familiar with. I personally had the experience of temporary amnesia several times. When I'm traveling one day, one place, and I wake up in the morning and I think, where am I? I look around and where is this place? And it takes me a little time to remember where I am. So if someone reminds you, actually, you may wake up and think, what's going on? Where is this place? And someone says, well, actually you're in Perambur, in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, in India. Okay. Am I in Salem or Vellore or Baroda or London? Or you're in Perambur. Okay, fine. So like that, Shastra gives us the knowledge of who we actually are. Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, they wake us up. We've been asleep for a very long time. So we have a severe case of amnesia. Am I an American or an Indian or a dog or a cat or a chimpanzee? We had so many bodies and we're not sure. You're a devotee of Krishna. Okay. You sure? Yes. But I really thought I was an American. I've got this passport and it says American citizen. It's got my photo in there. Looks pretty real to me. No, that's not you. You are not that bag of bones. The bag of bones and the identity that goes with it is temporary. Previously you had a chimpanzee bag of bones. Before that you might have had a boneless body, like a tadpole or something. Or a tortoise body in which the bone is just on the outside. The bone is the bag. It's not a bag of bones. It's a bone bag. So the controversy I was talking about is, how did we get here? Same question that Parikshit asked. Because Srila Prabhupada often said that originally we were in the spiritual world with Krishna. But some scriptural writings and those of acharyas say that, well, we never were actually with Krishna. Or at least it seems to say. So it seems to be a bit confusing. Now, if we say we're in the spiritual world with Krishna, then how could we, in that blissful, pure relationship with Krishna, give it up? If we're pure and we have spiritual knowledge, then how could we just give it up? How can illusion enter in the spiritual world? How can Krishna let his dear devotee fall? But on the other hand, the idea that we're in this material world from time immemorial, we were never with Krishna, that means Krishna, without giving us any choice, put us in a position where we're just suffering from time immemorial. So, Srila Prabhupada, when he was asked about this by his disciples, he would reply in various ways. In one time he gave the example of the Kakatalyanyai, the logic of the crow and the palm fruit. That two pundits were walking along and there was a palm tree. A crow landed on the palm tree, and just as the crow landed, a palm fruit fell down. And one pundit said, see, the fruit has fallen because the crow landed, and that gave it impetus to fall down. And the other pundit said, no, it was just coincidental. It would have fallen anyway. And so they argued back and forth. No, it was the crow landed. No, it was coincidental. So which one is correct? Who can say? It's not worth arguing about it, because you can't ascertain. You can't wind back time and make some scientific analysis, put some nodes and electric wires on the tree and see if it was about to fall anyway. It's beyond ascertainment. So Srila Prabhupada said, don't waste your time discussing, just get out of this world. Another example he gave, that if you're drowning in the ocean Someone comes past in a boat and throws you a rope, and you don't call out to him, "How did I get here in the first place?" Drowning. How did I get here? You don't just grab the rope and get out. First of all, you have to tell me how I got here. In the meantime, you drown. It's not the essential subject. The essential subject is how to get out. So in the same way, we should get out of this miserable material world, go back home, back to Godhead, back to Krishna, and not worry too much about how we got here. On other occasions when Srila Prabhupada was asked about this, on several occasions, he explained in some detail that the eternal relationship, of course I'm paraphrasing here, that the eternal relationship of the jiva is with Krishna in loving service. Jivesurup hoy Krishna nityadas. The eternal position, the position of the jiva, constitutional position, is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada several times said that we fell from the spiritual world, we were with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna gives the jiva minute independence. He can choose to serve Krishna or to forget Krishna. Because loving service means voluntary service. If we don't have any choice, then it's not loving service. And Srila Prabhupada gave the example, if I put a gun at your head and say, "Love me," you'll say, "Yes, I love you," but it's not love, it's forced. So we have the choice to voluntarily, lovingly serve Krishna or to forget Krishna. And that minute independence is the meaning of being a jiva, of being alive, being a living being. So there's always the possibility of misuse of that independence. If there's no possibility of the misuse of that independence, then it wouldn't be independence. So when the servant desires to imitate the master, when the jiva desires to imitate Krishna, he cannot be Krishna. Krishna doesn't give him the chance to be Krishna himself. Krishna is Krishna. He gives him the opportunity to imagine himself to be. And therefore we come to this material world and play at being a king or an American or a spider or whatever. But it's temporary and not real in the fullest sense. It's like a dream. In Chaitanya Charitamrita we have this statement, Krishna bhuli se jivanadi bahimok ataiv maya tare daya sangsaradu. Forgetting Krishna bhuli se jiv, the jiva who forgets Krishna is inimical toward Krishna from time immemorial, and therefore Maya gives him the miserable conditions of this material world. Now, in this very verse, there is an apparent contradiction. If we say Krishna bhuli, that means forgetting Krishna, which means at a point in time. That means we had knowledge of Krishna and we desire to forget Krishna. But the term anadi means that there is no beginning. So, what do we make of that? How do we explain that? Well, Srila Prabhupada explains it that anadi means it's such a long time that we can't remember. You could explain it to say that bhuli means a state of forgetfulness which is beginningless. But then it's not really forgetfulness, it's just plain ignorance. Forgetfulness means you knew at some point. And grammatically it indicates, I know Bengali so I can say this. It means an act of forgetfulness, forgetting Krishna. That jiva is from time immemorial inimical to Krishna. Now, virodhi. Some people don't accept this explanation. They say, well, actually Prabhupada was just saying that, but he didn't really mean it. He was saying that because it's like the Christian idea of Adam and Eve. They were they were remembering God and then they rebelled against Him. So Prabhupada was just saying that because his Western disciples wouldn't be able to accept that we actually have been in material existence, never having knowledge of Krishna since time immemorial. Which is actually a very poor argument, because most of the things Prabhupada said were not acceptable to the Western mind. The average Western person, almost everything Prabhupada said is just not acceptable. Even the idea of having a guru who you're supposed to surrender to goes against the whole... America was founded on the principle of do your own thing. I don't know how much... Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding... the original hippie. The idea of just complete freedom, and do what you like, think what you like, say what you like. God has 4 hands, so do you. Go to the spiritual world and you'll also get 4 hands. In India, it's everyone, it's just you grow up with at least pictures of 4 hands, 10 hands and all this kind of thing. But no one ever dreamed of it in the West. Srila Prabhupada, knowing very well that many of his disciples would find it difficult to accept it, spoke the Bhagavatam version that these so-called astronauts did not go to the moon. And actually one of Prabhupada's own personal servant left Krishna consciousness because he couldn't accept Prabhupada saying that they're not going to the moon, it's a hoax. So the argument that, Prabhupada just said that for his Western disciples, but it's not really true, and now we've discovered that it's not really true, so it's a very poor argument. Then some devotees at some time quoted Srila Bhakti-Vinod Thakur to Prabhupada, saying that the jivas come from the Brahma-jyoti. And Prabhupada said, the Brahma-jyoti is it's already a fallen position. Sometimes devotees say, all the previous acharyas and all the shastras, they all say that we're here in this material world since time immemorial. Well, that's true. Prabhupada also says that. But he explains anadi, immemorial, to mean that it's such a long time we can't trace out the beginning. But that our original and our actual relationship is with Krishna. Otherwise, if we're just in this material world and we never had any relationship with Krishna, then we may say, Jiva Sarupai Krishna Nityadas, kintu Ama Nitya Sarupai Maya Nityadas. You can say that the position of the jiva is eternal servant of Krishna, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm the eternal servant of Maya, and I'm going to stay that way. Forget Krishna, okay, I'll go on forgetting him. What is our relationship with Krishna? We never had a relationship. There is no actual relationship. At least in my readings of the previous acharyas, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I say many times they say we were in the spiritual world with Krishna. We fell from that position. So it's not true that the previous acharyas never said that. Srila Prabhupada's magazine is called Back to Godhead, not discovering Godhead for the first time. Back to Godhead means we were there. This phrase, back to Godhead, was given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The Srila Prabhupada didn't invent this. We also find in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam Bhuktridve Hetu Ruchyate, which means that the jiva in this material world is the architect of his own destiny, of his suffering and happiness. In this context, Purusha means the jiva. So like I say, it's a controversy. At least according to the GBC, and some people say the GBC shouldn't get involved in philosophical matters, but the GBC have taken a very strong position on that. That means the governing body commission of the ultimate managing authority of ISKCON. They've taken a very strong position on this. So the GBC say that, because Srila Prabhupada consistently explained that we have fallen from the spiritual world. Therefore, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we shouldn't propagate any other philosophy. So, the position that Srila Prabhupada explains, that actually includes the other position that we are in the spiritual world since time immemorial. It doesn't contradict the Vedanta Sutras, which say that karma is anadi. It's explained. Jiva Goswami, in his Sandarbhas, which are definitive for Gauriya Vaishnavas, says that no one ever falls from Vaikuntha. And of course Srila Prabhupada also says, no one ever falls from Vaikuntha. But then we get again Srila Prabhupada and other acharyas saying that we have fallen into this material world. For instance, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Ai Nanda Tanaju Kinkaram, what's the next word?
Patitam.
Patitam, means to fall. I am your eternal servitor, but I've fallen into this horrible position. So, there's no real need for this controversy because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says we've fallen. But karma is anadi, yes, we don't, I'm going too far. We've fallen means we cannot actually be separate from Krishna. But our position is, as explained in this verse, swapna drashtur. We're as if seeing a dream. And when we wake up, it will be over and finished, even though the dream may seem to be very long. But it has no actual substance. But we better do something to wake up also. We may say, well, how can I wake up in a dream, if I'm in a dream? But actually we do have that experience when we're dreaming and someone calls up, hey, come on, get up, it's time to wake up. So we come to half-waking consciousness, and it can mix up with the dream. Dreams are they can be very, very strange. Some nights ago I had a dream of one of my disciples who's a very austere kind of brahmachari, and with his usual half-torn cloth, he had big earrings and hanging down, and they were like chandeliers. You know this? That's the kind of thing you get in a dream. It's absurd. When I woke up, I was laughing. That's the material world. It's absurd. So you have to wake up from this dream. So from outside this platform of consciousness, from the platform of pure consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is calling, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. And the sound is coming through. Jeev Jago means wake up, sleeping soul. But just like if you have to go to work and your wife is calling you, in your dream, you can have enough consciousness to just adjust it to the sound of some dog barking or something like that, and pretend it's not really, I don't really have to get up. That means we're rascals. Or we can listen. Time to get up. Okay, time to get up. So we have to choose. Hare Krishna. Any question about this, please? Controversial topics.
Our dream connect is our previous karma and the mind.
Our dream connects with our previous karma and the mind. What's the question?
From which phase dream come? From which situation?
For what situation how is a dream created? Quite mysterious, isn't it? Mysterious? Guhyamana? You have any such word? No? Anyway, Rahasyana. Yeah, mysterious is a bit different to strange. Strange is more general. Mysterious means... Strange means it strikes us as being unusual, and mysterious means that it's very difficult to understand. Then we get into a big topic. Then we get into psychology. At every moment, impressions are created in our mind. Everything we see, hear, touch, smell, feel and taste creates an impression in the mind, and everything we think at every moment based on the sum total of our previous thinking, touching, smelling, tasting, hearing, that also creates another impression. So it's like a whole kaleidoscope of impressions. That mixes with desire, deep-rooted desire, vasana, and then there's the effect of our association and the previous acts that we've performed, and that may combine in various dreams. We may get some karmic reaction in a dream. A nightmare is a sinful reaction experienced in a dream.
When Jivatma goes to this material world and it gets contact with the matter, it gets condemned to the states, they lose the consciousness of the personality that is the Krishna. So is that the soul is responsible or the mind is responsible, or why you cannot think of that?
Is the soul responsible or the mind responsible for our falling in this material world? Well, the mind is only an adjunct of the soul. The soul is the person. We are personally responsible. Yeah, the soul is Satchidananda, that's true. But the soul is independence also. Go round and round like this forever. But we have the opportunity, we can use or misuse our independence. Unless there's the possibility to misuse our to have independence and misuse it, then we can't be Satchidananda. We could be a cartoon figure with Satchidananda written on our forehead. But unless we have some measure of choice, then there's no actual experience of happiness if we're just programmed. So we can go round and round. The question comes down to, is it our fault or is it Krishna's fault that we're suffering? If we say that we've volitionally rejected Krishna, then it's our fault. If we say that we're just here and we're always here and we never knew anything about Krishna, then Krishna has volitionally, that means deliberately, put us in a situation of suffering. And Krishna's just a big jerk. The big jerk in the sky. And it also means that we don't have a relationship with Krishna. We don't have a constitutional relationship with Krishna. So, either way, it's very difficult to understand. Oh, Radha, now we're going to make a big jump here. Making a big jump.
What we should do to have Radha Krishna in our dream and to go to Goloka Vrindavan?
What should we do to have Radha Krishna in our dream? You can't force Radha Krishna to come in your dream. You can serve Radha Krishna in your waking life. If we adopt the mood of service, then by their mercy and the mercy of their devotees, we may be transferred to Goloka Vrindavan to serve them there. So that process is being taught here. You have to follow the process. Again, it's not that by following the process that Krishna is forced to accept us. Anyway, that's a bit off topic. That's getting up into Abhidheya and Prayojana. I'm just talking Sambandha Gyan here. What are the different arguments? Well, I'm presenting one paksha here, one side. If you want to, you can look it up and present the other one. Well, I gave some idea. I did present. You didn't hear? I gave some of the arguments. The previous acharyas didn't say this. That how can the soul who is pure fall? You didn't hear that? If you want to get into it more, you can read that book, Our Original Position. And you can go on your whole life like that, if you want. The Vedas are also anadi, yes.
That also it was foretold that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu it was predestined that some day they were this world.
Well, it's predestined that some jivas will fall down. Srila Prabhupada gave the example that if the government builds a new city, it will also build a prison. It's not the government is inviting people to come to the prison, or that the government wants people to go to the prison, but it's understood that some citizens are going to misuse the freedom that the government allows them, and therefore they'll have to be sent to prison. So yeah, the material world, it's going on and will go on, but we don't have to remain within it. That's the most important point. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So please read Prabhupada's books very carefully. Everything we need to be fully Krishna conscious is in Srila Prabhupada's books. See how profound this verse is. Shukdev is not only speaking about Krishna and the gopis. It gives, here we see this perfect knowledge of how we're in this material world. Actually, if you